Hello everybody, Mannix here. Going to be doing a quick little knife review on the Cold Steel Luzon. First started out with their large Luzon. This guy, right here. Oh yeah, much bigger knife. It's almost like double the size. Almost. Okay, like it's like an extra third of the size or so, 33% bigger. But it's massive folder. Absolutely love this blade. Raved about it, totally affordable, amazing self-defense option, Marshall blade, for so many reasons. I'm not going to talk about this one in this review, though. Just watch my large Luzon review. Absolutely raved about this thing. Excellent knife, especially for the money. But let's step down to its little brother, the medium-sized Luzon. And it's always funny to me how Cold Steel calls their knives mediums. Medium-sized because oftentimes they don't have a small. They have a large and a medium, or like medium, large, XL. They did that with their Voyagers back in the day before they discontinued those as well. So sad. Sniffle. But regardless, this is an excellent folder for the money. If you're willing to just save the $5 and you don't want to get this guy, this is a very good knife for the money. $35 across the board. Let's get its specs out of the way first. Retails at $49.99, totally reasonable. The weight is about 3.5 ounces. Again, pretty light. Not too heavy, not too light, but it's okay. The blade steel is 8CR13 MOV. We have a satin finish on there. It appears to be a hollow grind on the blade. If you look closely, we have a little swedge on the clip point and a fuller right there, that little line. Some people refer to that as a blood groove. It's technically called a fuller. Just makes the knife a little bit lighter. For a blade like this, it's basically going to do absolutely nothing. But when you're talking bigger blades, like those full-size Bowies and stuff, having a fuller does lighten it up a little bit. Not a big deal. Blade length 4 inches, overall length coming in at 9 inches, which means the handle length is 5 inches. You're good at math. GRN handle right here, or glass reinforced nylon, sometimes referred to as glass filled nylon, which is GFN, oftentimes referred to as FRN, which is fiberglass reinforced nylon, and then sometimes this company calls it Grivex or Grivery. There's so many names for it, but basically it's glass and plastic melted together, which is way stronger than regular plastic. It's extremely strong. You can smack it against concrete or metal all day long. You're not going to crack or break it under normal circumstances or even abusive circumstances. Little oval-shaped lanyard hole back there. We have a backspacer. The liners are flush to all of the cutouts in the backspacer and the FRN handle scales. Also an GRN pocket clip right here. That's different. Most knives have not done that in a very long time. That's going back to like the 90s and such, when pocket clips were starting to get more popular. I'll talk about that in a minute there. We have the leaf spring lock, which is a lock for the lock. If you're not familiar, it is a liner lock, but it's a lock for the lock, kind of like the locks system that CRKT put on some of their knives. You have a virtual fixed blade when you do that. It's very unlikely that thing is going to disengage on you. If you look closely, it's literally just a hardened, tempered steel obstruction that just obstructs the way of the liner. In order for it to disengage, you have to push it that way, but you can't. There's just a hunk of metal in the way. It's very positive with the way it snaps into place. It's difficult to insert it into the middle, like off of its track, so to speak. It's either off or it's on. With the amount of pressure, and there's possibly a detent in there, I don't know how it works exactly, but it gives you a very positive up and down, off and on functionality right there, which I really like. It's excellent. And again, the XL has that as well. It's a nice little addition. Cold Steel's been putting that on all of their knives lately, almost all of their knives that have liner locks anyway. You know, it's a way to strengthen the liner lock. I like liner locks, you know, they're fast. They have a relatively low amount of tension on the blade, so it makes flicking it out relatively easy. You can have the ball bearing detent on there. If you look very closely right there, that's what keeps the blade in place, prevents it from shaking out if you're unfamiliar with how that works. And with enough pressure, you can flick out the knife. This is a completely manual folder. It is not automatic. There is no spring. There's no torsion bar. The amount of force right there, you can just flick it out every single time without any wrist movement. Well executed knife. Thumb studs right here, although they're not very good for thumb studs because that's not their primary focus. It's very difficult, or not very, it's moderately difficult to flick it out with a thumb stud unless you push it on an angle to the side. Then it flicks out pretty easily, but if you're using it like it is any other thumb stud, it's going to be a little bit trickier because it's mainly supposed to be, yeah, see I missed it there, mainly supposed to be a blade stop, as you can see. Skeletonized liners in here, look at that. Way to go above and beyond, Cold Steel. That is something you're doing well, which I will say. They're not flush mounted steel liners, but I will call this parallel mounted. You can see there's big old milled cutouts in the middle to help lighten it up. How much does it really help you? Probably 0.1 ounces at the most with a knife this size. It does very, very little. Skeletonizing liners and making folding knives as light as possible was a really big thing back in the day, by which I mean like 8-9 years ago or so as of filming this. I don't know how much people care about that in knives anymore. I don't really pay too much attention to the forums, or I don't watch a whole lot of videos on knives these days. It's kind of hard to find them because YouTube pretty much censors us and makes it difficult for us to find videos on knives and such. But from what I have seen, I don't think people are talking about it too much anymore. It doesn't really matter. If we're talking about ounces, we're not talking about pounds here. You're not going to notice if a knife's that much heavier typically. Of course, now I'll get some people probably commenting, actually, yeah, I do notice it all the time. So screw you. Sorry if you're one of those people. It's just I don't notice it. I've carried knives that were really heavy, 12, 13, 14 ounces, and I forget they're on me. You know, maybe it's because I'm wearing cargo pants. I don't know. Sometimes I wear cargo shorts. If you're wearing sweatpants, yeah, you're probably going to notice it. But I typically carry very, very, very light knives when it comes to sweatpants. But I usually don't go out in sweatpants. So, whatever. The pocket clip works very well. We have a very decent tension on here. Some people might think it's too weak. Some people may think it might crack. It's possible, but if you're abusing the knife, that it could crack. FRN's really strong, or GRN, whatever you want to call it. Glass-filled nylon. Glass and plastic mixed together. Very strong polymer we have here. It's a good design. I don't know why Cold Steel went with a plastic pocket clip. I don't know why. They never have done that in a very long time. We're talking like the original Voyagers from like the 90s. They've done that, but most knife companies in general have avoided the plastic or polymer, whatever you want to call them, pocket clips. They just go with the metal ones. It's interesting how they picked these two Luzons to go with the plastic pocket clips. I don't know why they did that, but it works just fine. I like the way it looks. It's very covert in a way. It's very wide, as you can see, very, very wide pocket clip we have right here. But I like the design, you know. You can take it off, but then you're going to have sort of a slope right here. You can see how the handle, the size of it, and the girth kind of accommodates for the pocket clip right here. So if you took it off, you'll have kind of a lopsided folder right there, and you can't swap it. It is tip-up right-hand carry only. Definitely a tip-up guy. Do not prefer tip-down, but it's not a deal breaker for me. I mean, most knives, if they're tipped down, I'm not going to not buy it if I really like the design, just because of the orientation of the pocket clip. But, you know, to each their own. It is tip up, so it's just not a very lefty-friendly knife, as a lot of these liner locks with these leaf springs are not. You can, if you're a lefty. I'm not, but it's slightly more awkward, I think, to disengage it. It's not that big of a deal, but liner locks typically are more righty-friendly, so it's another problem. I wish Cold Steel would. I kind of like their triad locks most, honestly, but whatever. Not a big deal. So anyway, you can see it's a very slim, pointy knife. It's going to be great with the pierce cut. It's good with decent slicing and stuff, but it's kind of limited on its uses. But what I will say is you have a lot to hold on to right here as well. It's relatively comfortable. The choil in the liner lock, I was going to say pocket clip, sorry. The liner lock right here is not the most comfortable. It's kind of pointy and slightly difficult to disengage. I like liner locks that have like a big old amount of surface area right there, but this one just doesn't. So it's slightly difficult to get disengaged, not the most comfortable, but whatever, it's not a big deal. And it's not the most comfortable knife to hold. Like, there is sort of like the thumb ramp right here that comes from what was once one of the guards down here for the blade. It becomes a thumb ramp. It is rounded, as you can see. It's not very comfortable. It doesn't really match up too well with your thumb, but it works. You know, we have a guard right here, although it is kind of smooth and slippery. Not the greatest attention to detail right here. I kind of like it when the flippers match up perfectly with the handle. This one doesn't. It kind of just sort of does its own thing right there. But also not a very big deal. I like all these grooves and cutouts right here. It's cool, and I like how they did some digging work, so to speak, in these handle scales right here. Adds a decent amount of traction. You can see it's a little bit textured. They've done that on previous knives with this material. But it's not. This doesn't really accommodate the human hand very well. It's grippy, but I usually like choils that actually fit fingers. These are too small for any size fingers, really. It's not the most comfortable knife in the world, but I do kind of like this concave, I guess you'd call it right here, this sort of sloping design that we have. And it's kind of thick. It's not like super thin or anything. There's a decent amount to grip onto. I prefer thicker knives, generally speaking. There's not really a whole lot else to say about it. It is affordable, you know, $35. 8CR13 MOV. Cheaper steel, but it gets razor sharp, and even though it dulls relatively quickly, it sharpens relatively quickly. So not really a whole lot to complain about there. If you're familiar with the Spyderco Tenacious, Ambitious, Persistence, Resilience, they all use 8CR13 MOV, great blades, works very well. I've never had a problem with it. I don't gouge and cut at metal with my blades, so I don't really have a problem with it chipping or rolling over on me or anything like that. 8CR13 MOV works very well for me. It gets razor sharp. It's a great defensive blade. There's really nothing wrong with it as far as that material goes. It's very easy to maintain because it resharpens very easily too. It just won't hold its edge for very long compared to some other stuff out there. But if you want a better blade steel that will hold its edge longer, you're going to be paying more because if they stuck a better blade steel on here, it will affect the price tag as well. So absolutely adequate steel. It's perfectly fine for this price point. You know, $35. Can't really go wrong with it. So let me roll in the Cold Steel Tie-Light. That's the closest knife I can think of to this blade that Cold Steel also sells. This is a much older Cold Steel design. Very similar blades in a lot of ways. Luzon wins just a little bit more, I think. It's slightly more ergonomic, slightly more comfortable. The blade is a little bit more useful. We have a clip point rather than a spear point. It's almost the same thickness. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thickness. Bead blasted liners here, by the way, instead of the satin liners or stonewash liners, whatever those are. GRN pocket clip instead of the metal pocket clip. This one rides up a little bit higher, carries a little nicer, I think, but it's not that big of a deal. This knife's just ever so slightly more versatile, less stylistic. This one's designed to look more like an Italian stiletto folder. I feel like this one's a little smoother, too. I really like the Tie-Light a lot, but it's not the most useful knife. It's meant to be a little bit more stylistic. Again, similar price point, similar blade steel, similar at everything else. This one's just going to be a little bit more useful because its shape, I think, is just a little more versatile. And plus, you get the leaf spring lock here as well. The Tie-Light does not have that. So overall, I think it's slightly better, slightly more useful knife. If you're torn between the two, if you want some style and you really like that Italian stiletto look, the Tie-Light wins a little bit. But if you want something just a little bit more useful, just a little bit more versatile, the Luzon wins. So it's a cool knife overall. I'm not like stoked about it, which is why I did not buy it for myself. I bought this guy for myself because I was stoked about this one, and I absolutely love the, oh, look at that, it's insane. I absolutely love the large size Luzon. That's a great knife. If you just want to spend the extra $4 or $5, get this one, absolutely. If you don't mind having all that extra weight, all that extra edge right there. But for something a little bit more useful, a little bit more covert, something you can bring to work or something that you won't get as many funny looks when you flick out, the medium Luzon wins for sure. It's a great knife. I'm not trying to take anything away from it. It's just, it's not the most exciting to me. It's just kind of a whatever, you know, slim, long knife, moderately lightweight, moderately good at everything. It's slim, so it's a little bit more task specific. It's not the most versatile, but it's not the most extreme either. It's a good option from Cold Steel. You know, take it or leave it. I'm kind of lukewarm on it, but it's not a bad knife by any means. If you really like this knife, please let me know in the comments. Tell me what you really like about this knife that it offers over other knives in the price point. Now let's close off the video. I'm just showing a little bit of each knife right here, and then we'll end with the XL. Oh, sorry, the 6-inch Tie-Light right here. Interesting comparisons, huh? They're like cousins or brothers, basically. Two big boys right here, and then they're young little bros right down there. So interesting. These both are the Tie-Lights, and these two are the Luzons. Similar blades, similar prices, similar uses. It's interesting how Cold Steel just kind of put these together for us. So that's really cool. Anyway, that is it. That is the Cold Steel Luzon Medium. It is going out to one of my best friends of all time as a super late Christmas / birthday present. Hope you like it.